Hey, it's James, Fathers Rights and Resources, hashtag how I got custody. So I just did a video where I was talking about how it hit me, how the courts will push to force you to step up and do a parenting role by financially supporting your kid. That's a parenting function. It's a parenting responsibility. It's a parenting duty according to most laws. They will order you, even though you're working, you're making $20 an hour working because you can't find a $30 an hour job that you used to have. So they're ordering you to pay $400 more in child support than you can afford because they're imputing your income. Why don't they impute more time with you? The mother's saying you have a parenting dysfunction or inability to parent properly. Why don't they say, well, the child needs time with the parent and needs the parent. So why don't they force you to spend time with the kid because the child needs that? They force you to pay child support because the child needs money. Well, they need love more than need money. Excuse me. So why don't they force that to happen if they're looking out for the child? That's one aspect that shows how they're just, the whole family court system is a child slave trade operation. So then also we know that the courts, you got to pay a filing fee to start a case. If you're a dad who's falsely accused of domestic violence, you got to do domestic violence treatment, get a domestic violence assessment, sometimes get a psych eval, have a guardian ad litem. So you have to pay all these fees to have somebody look at you to see if you have a problem. Meanwhile, they don't make a finding that you have a problem, but you have to pay all these entities tens of thousands of dollars and pay to have a chance to see your kid. So that's basically an extortion racket, or it's basically they're kidnapping your kids. It's a kids for cash type of thing, like that scandal with the juvenile courts with those two judges in Pennsylvania. If you know anything about that, just look at hashtag kids for cash. Juvenile judge was given money by a juvenile detention facility, basically a jail for kids, if he ushered and moved the more kids that he sent there to fill up the jail so they can do business and make money in this brand new empty jail, the more money he'll get. He made $1 million doing that and sending kids over there without due process, without an attorney and all that other stuff. Those guys should be executed for treason. But Joe Biden just pardoned them. And there's at least one kid who committed suicide with his, I don't know what you say, the over the top punishment. He got like 6 months in there or a year in there for pot possession. And they usually give a kid a warning or a ticket or a fine or something like that. And this kid came out of there after, because kids will beat each other up in there and all that kind of stuff. This kid came out of there and killed himself because of the trauma that he suffered being in there. So that loss of life was a direct result of that guy, getting paid. And there's actually speeches, that judge giving speeches about how harsh of a strong hand he wants to put down. I think he was a prosecutor, and how he wants to punish people and throw people in jail and just abuse his power doing that. So that's probably why they picked him. But anyway, so we got all this child for cash, slave trade, extortion. They're really doing an extortion game where they're like, okay, you can have your kid if you pay all these services to prove that you're innocent. And we know, like I talk about all the time, Troxel versus Granville says we assume that fit parents act in the best interest of the children. So the children need you. You act in the best interest of the child. Why would they take the child away? Oh, because we need to investigate if you have a problem. That's kind of like arresting you or holding you, or you see all these videos on YouTube nowadays where people are wising up, and cops will ask you for ID, and you'll say, did I commit a crime? Do you have probable cause? Do you have a warrant? Then you can just be on your way. The government is supposed to leave you alone. And cops will try and find an ID to see if they can find you have an outstanding warrant, you have an outstanding ticket, you have this and that. And then they further interrogate. They might have a suspicion that you did something wrong, or you might look suspicious. But they don't have a right to just like a fascist government, just start checking people and rounding people up because they feel like it, right? So when people stand up to them, a lot of times it takes a little while, but you'll see videos like that. If you Google or search on YouTube, encounter with police, like some guys actually provoke the cops. They'll go walking around with the AK-47 or AR-15 in the streets, and then they'll get the cops called on them, and it's, you can openly carry in that state. And the cops are like, let me show you some ID. Somebody said you're suspicious, and they'll say, I don't care. Well, why don't you answer some questions? I just saw a video where this guy he had his trailer camped out some open area near some park. And these rangers came up to him and they said, show us ID. He goes, I didn't commit a crime. What, did I commit a crime? They're like, we don't know if you commit a crime. We don't know what's in your vehicle. We want to search your vehicle. No, I have a constitutional right. You can't search my vehicle unless you have probable cause. What's the probable cause? Well, we need to find out. That's backwards, okay? So in family court, the judges are ordering that you can't have access to your kid as if you're dangerous, but they don't make a finding. That's why I have my video. They have to make a finding before they take something away. Before you're executed for murder, what does the jury have to do before the government can come in and kill you? They have to make a finding that you're guilty of murder. They have to make a finding of fact. The judge can't, in the middle of trial or before trial at your arraignment, say, man, you look like you did it. I'm going to give you the death penalty. They can't do that until you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. And it's kind of the same principle with Troxel versus Granville when you apply that stuff. You're innocent of being a bad parent until proven guilty. And so the courts will order limited time and take away your kids and kick you out of your house and all this other stuff just in case you might have done something. And they're going to go investigate, and they're not going to actually find proof of something you did the other day or last week. They're going to go and have some hairy-legged social worker who's now a licensed mental health counselor who just got out of social work school, and she was molested by her stepdad. And she's going to determine whether she can guess that you actually were abusive toward the kids. Now, I say all that to say, we talk about this stuff all the time. Why don't you bring this stuff up in court? Your Honor, you can't do that. Troxel versus Granville, assume this, assume that. This court is engaging in child trafficking. This court is, if you care about the kids, I just had a guy who lost a motion, and we were talking about the next thing that he should do is say, okay, the court denied my motion. I haven't seen my kid in a few months. There's a court order. So what you're saying, Your Honor, is it's okay for kids not to see their dad for months at a time. You would throw me in jail if I didn't pay child support in a few months. How come you tolerate the child missing the father for several months? How come you're not all over that? How come the money is more important than love? That can't be possible. You're violating the science. You're a science denier. You're violating the law because it's a presumptuous 50-50 state. And you're violating public policy. You're violating societal norms. No one in the entire world says it's not urgent to rescue the child from being starved of a father. The child's being starved of a father right now. If the child is being starved of food, CPS would come and take the kids, or you would order the parent to give them food. Or if they're not going to the doctor and they have a special medical need, you might order them to go to a doctor. How come the father isn't on the urgency level there? The only reason that you would ignore the science and be a science denier and ignore the law and you would ignore societal norms, you're the only person in the entire world that says this child doesn't need his father. And it's okay to deprive the child of a father. You're the only person in the world that says that. And we're talking about, this guy I was talking to, we were talking about putting the words in the judge's mouth and say, that is the only explanation for what you did, unless you make a specific finding as to why you did what you did. Why did you ignore the law, public policy, and denied the science or ignored the science and didn't do what's best for a child? Why do you think it's okay for a child to be deprived of a father? I demand findings. So that's his next move. We'll see how that goes. But why aren't you guys talking to this like the judges? The problem is in the court, and everybody's talking about it everywhere outside of the court. Why aren't you addressing this stuff when I don't want to piss off the judge? You're on supervised visitation for no good reason. The judge violated your rights. If your steak is cold at Ruth Chris Steakhouse, you will send it back and complain to the waiter. How come you don't complain to the judge about his misconduct and he might hurt me again later, even worse? It can't get any worse. Plus, you have a constitutional right to redress grievances. I told my judge that him and the baby's mom's attorney both have hideously ugly wives. And he's mad at me because I date beautiful women. I didn't go to jail. And then after that, I won some hearings and I lost some. He was really butthurt and mad because I got him reversed in the Court of Appeals before that. So he made some rulings against me in retaliation. So I figured I'd have some fun with it. Now, I didn't go to jail. Why don't you do the same?